I've been involved with Honda off-road racing for over 20 years. We started my career in Baja racing and I had a really successful career there. We've won 11 Baja 1000s, 5 Baja 500s and 7 San Felipe 250s. We have a multitude of other victories in off-road racing stemming from Nevada to Africa to all over the globe. After 17 consecutive Baja 1000 wins, there was time for a change, and we decided to go back east to the Grand National Cross Country Championship. And it was a pretty dramatic change. I mean, I've been in Baja for over 20 years racing and riding Honda motorcycles and developing product. And this last year was almost like a culture shock to us. We went back east of the Mississippi and started playing in the mud and testing bikes back there. And it was a big shock, and there was a lot of things that were very similar to off-road racing in the West or in Baja as there is back east, but there's probably a multitude more of differences. Some of the similarities to prepping a bike for Baja as it is in GNCC is, one is the fuel tank. In Baja we use a 3-gallon fuel tank. In GNCC we also use a 3-gallon fuel tank. Now, in the GNCC, you're not riding from pit stop to pit stop at 50-mile intervals, but what you're doing, you're circulating a 9 to 12-mile track for 3 hours. And so what we're able to achieve in that is we can go half the race on a tank of fuel and then refuel, and then you're good to go for the rest of the race. One of the performance items that we use for a GNCC is a Pro Circuit exhaust system. It's specifically tuned for our carburation, our fuel injection mapping. We basically set the bike up in the exhaust system so that it's giving the rider a really good linear traction. It has a broad power in the bottom, but it also has a little bit of run out on top, but it's very, very geared to running lower RPMs, whereas in Baja we're running very high RPMs. Also in the GNCC we use a more open, aggressive tire than we would in Baja. In Baja we reach speeds of up to 100 miles an hour, and you need a tire that's going to be durable at those sustained speeds. In a GNCC you want a tire that has more open, that's going to be able to clean itself as you race. So you still want a durable tire, because a lot of times you're dealing with a lot of rocks, and a 3-hour event, you'll get a tire that could lose all the knobs, so you don't want to lose that traction during that event. So you need a knob pattern that's open, aggressive, but also very durable, like this Maxxis SI. The suspension setup on the GNCC bike is much different than a Baja bike. The Baja bike, of course, is made for hitting large whoops and square edges at a very high rate of speed. Well, the GNCC bike is similar in the aspect that you're hitting square edges, but you're also hitting tree roots, big tree roots, rocks, and you're hitting those things at a much lower speed. And so the valving in the suspension is much different and geared toward a 30 to 40 mile an hour ride versus a 60 to 80 mile an hour ride. The dynamics is so different in how we've had to set up the bike. And that's one reason we've went from the 450X to the 450R to be able to have a bike that was a little more nimble and set up for a slower speed, where the X, it goes good in that condition, but the weight of it is a little bit cumbersome when you pile on about 80 pounds of mud. In deserts of Baja, we mainly use a handguard almost for a protection, not necessarily for branches, but sometimes roost, or sometimes it's cold out. Where in a GNCC you need the protection to keep the brush off your hands or grabbing the levers. A lot of guys use a bark buster type device that goes around and protects the hand, where my rider Chris, he actually likes the brush guard feeling to make it lighter, and it makes it steer a lot lighter, and the handling's a lot better. We take a stock motorcycle and tune it to the rider preference in a very specific environment. The GNCCs are a very unique environment to race in, with the mud, the woods, the roots and the rocks, and the CRF 450R does a fine job at that.